All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. I believe this is episode 22. I'm your host, Mike, and today I am joined by my man, Patrick, over here. Pat, what's up, man? You hyped for this card?
Yeah, I know. I'm glad to fill in for my guy Eric Betts Fights. I guess he fell into the weather, so if he's Joe Lozon, I guess I'll be Jim Miller today,
huh? Nah, I feel him. I think I also caught something when I was over there in Austin because there was some kind of handicap or COVID going around. But hopefully Eric feels better. He should be coming on the show, I want to say, for UFC Long Island, so that'll be fun. But today I'm joined by Pat.
I told him I'd try to do him justice today, so the legend himself, Eric Betts Fights.
But yeah, so today I'm joined by Pat. If any of you guys watch me on the MMA Engine on the Bet Elevator, Pat joined me and Lou, I think like 2 weeks back or a week back, and it was a blast. So hopefully we can recreate that today. I'll do a quick recap, and then if you want to do it for your last weekend, Pat, go ahead as well. Yeah. So I had a rough night. I ended up down 5.68 units, and honestly, for me, it really came down to two things. A, I messed up trusting TJ Brown. I thought everybody was kind of overreacting, saying that Brown's not trustworthy. I was like, I don't get it. I think he's trustworthy. I think he's good. I think he's way better. And man, I was proven wrong. I still think he's better, but he's so not trustworthy, And I had like 5 units on him total, so that killed me. And then
slowly, that was like the difference maker right there, huh?
Yeah, and then slowly I was climbing back up, and then I forced Umar inside the distance, and he could have done it. It didn't happen. So it is what it is. Took the loss, but hopefully we'll come back stronger this week. How'd you do, Pat?
Yeah, I was right there with you. I think it was a little bit over -4. It was like 4 point something units, so almost right there with you. And it was TJ Brown was half of it right there was trusting him. Not that I thought TJ Brown was very capable, but it was one of those things where I'm trying to get out of this betting habit where I just because they're fighting an opponent that I don't think is that great, like Jalin Nordenbeck. I don't think that guy was that great. He looked better, in this fight, but not just taking somebody because they're fighting a lesser opponent or at least a perceived lesser opponent. So that was my mistake there. And then what would have saved me and made the difference and made it profitable would have been, Sarukian to win that fight. So that was a very close one. I can't beat myself up too bad about that, but it was a lot closer than I thought. So that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I got to rewatch that one. I only watched it live. And
Same.
To be honest, I was on Sarukian also. I thought Gamrot won on first watch. I know some people felt that it was a robbery, so I got to rewatch it.
Yeah, I rewatched it Sunday morning, actually, when I was making my recap video. And it was, it came down to, the grappling versus that knockdown, that really quick knockdown from that spinning back. That was really the one. Yeah, it was round 4, I think it was the deciding round. So very close fight. So whenever I'm in those spots where I lose money on that happened to me 2 weeks in a row now. 2 weeks in a row losing. It was all came out in the main event. Calvin Kattar in a close fight against Josh Emmett, and now Sarukian against Gamrot. So it's almost like I can't be too bad because those were super close fights where even the media decisions were kind of split between the two. But I got to get back on track this week, man. So I'm making very smart, calculated plays.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. At this point, honestly, I'm starting to look at people who are only going to finish because I'm so tired of trusting judging right now. It's not even that I think judging is bad, which I think judging is pretty bad. It's just very unclear right now. They say damage is the number one thing, but you got some judges who are grading damage number one, some who aren't. It's so across the board. It's just weird. But
last week when I saw the first fight of the night, I was able to watch all the fights, which I'm not normally able to do live. But once it was the Fry versus Demopoulos fight, once that had a judge score at 3-1, then I just knew all bets are off now. If this goes to any decision on the card, God only knows what's going to happen. So we got one guy scoring 3-1 for Demopoulos. So what are you going to do? At least it was a great fight. Both of those two past main events were great fights. So if I lose money on a great fight, whatever, I'm just paying admission.
Better than losing on a fight like Badeau and Parisian. That's what I did last week.
Oh no.
But all right, let's get right into it. So for our very first fight, before I start, I'll be using stats during this whole thing. Shout out to Uncle Weezy. It's his stats. He kills it. He puts it out for free. So I got to give him a shout out. That's what I use.
You got to go subscribe to Uncle Weezy if you like free money. It's basically free money.
And subscribe to Pat and subscribe to me. Don't forget.
That's true.
But so for this first fight, we've got Jessica Rose Clark versus Julija Stoliarenko. Clark is 11-7-0. She's 34 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. And I have her training out of Combat Sports Academy, so Tapology seems to be correct. And then on the other side, we got Julija Stoliarenko, 9'6" 1. She's 29 years old. She's 5 years younger, 5'7" with a 2-inch height advantage, and she's got a 69-inch reach, so she's got a 2-inch reach advantage. And I believe her Tapology is correct as well. She's training at a Fighter House. So, man, Pat, I don't know about you. I've already played Clark, but I'm getting vibes of Jinh Frey versus Demopoulos, honestly, because I feel like it's the same story, right? Jinh Frey is this grappler. Clark is this grappler recently. Stoliarenko is mostly usually doing stuff off her back. All her submissions are arm bars. Similar kind of matchup, I feel like. And I feel like it could be a similar trap too. One thing I would note, and I'm saying this as someone who bet Clark, I like to look at both sides, see how I could lose my bets. And I feel like Stoliarenko's striking might be a little bit underrated, to be honest. I feel like she does have that big winging right hand that looks disgusting, but once she starts like actually letting combos go, she cuts angles pretty well. She's putting together good combinations. She'll throw in a good head kick. I just think her defense is horrible. I think she's incredibly hittable. A gust of wind could probably knock her over. And I expect Jessica Rose Clark to probably handle herself on the feet, take her down, control her, not get subbed. So I did play her for, I want to say, 1.3 units. 1.5 units. I played her at -128 and -140. So I am on the Clark side. I don't think it's close, but I think it's a risky play. But I feel like she should be able to grind it out. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I made the same bet at -140. I got Jessica Rose Clark. It's one of those things where, get the horns on there. It's one of those things where, Julija Stoliarenko, of course, I saw this line was super close, and I was wondering why, because we have a 0-4, Stoliarenko, but of course you're having that recency bias of Rose Clark getting armbarred by Stephanie Egger. The difference is that Stephanie Egger is one of these, kind of like Ronda Rousey, where she's a judoka. She has the ability to actually get the fight to the ground, where she can, work her submission game. We're not seeing that from Julija Stoliarenko, who, she's had like 12 rounds of UFC fights, has only landed one takedown so far. So not really setting herself up for success in the submission here. But, Jessica Rose Clark, we're basically banking on her making a mistake if she's to lose this fight. I think that the stand-up is night and day. I do agree with your points about some good fundamental skills from Stoliarenko. Not horrible striking, but it becomes horrible when she gets hit. Anytime that she faces adversity, she becomes very, very submissive right off the bat. If she gets hit flush on the face, she starts backing up and not really offering much after that. So if Rose Clark can just please, for the love of God, just learn from your last mistake, drill that armbar defense, because Julija Stoliarenko kind of a one-trick pony here. So 8 submissions, 8 arm bars. She's 1-3 in decisions, and that one decision win that she had was a split. So, I think it's again betting women's MMA. If you're betting the underdogs, this isn't even a juicy underdog, so I don't even know why you would go for that side. If you lose that bet on Stoliarenko, you can only blame yourself for trusting a woman that's 0-4 in the UFC. So I'm on Rose Clark. I got the bet on it as well.
I do like what you said when you brought up that. Because I feel like everybody's saying, all right, like Clark fell into this armbar with Egger, so it's going to happen with Stoliarenko also. And I feel like nobody's talking about the fact that the levels of judo there are completely different. Like Egger is a high-level judo player, and Stoliarenko, not so much, at least in the UFC for sure. So, yeah, I think that's an important thing to bring up as well. But we are both on the same side. Jessica Rose Clark.
I said I was going to make calculated bets this week too. And first fight of the night, women's MMA. I'm betting on the favorite, but what are you going to do?
At least it's
I think it's a big disparity, and we're not laying that much money on Rose Clark here.
Yeah, it's not like Jinh Frey, right? Where we were paying almost, what was it, like 260?
It was disgusting, yeah.
But all right, this one's a fun one, and one that I've had quite a bit of a take on. I switched sides here. So we got Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Tavares is 19-6-0. He's 34 years old, 6'1", 74-inch reach, and he is still training out of Extreme Couture. Du Plessis on the other side is 16-2-0. He's 28 years old, 6'1" as well, 76-inch reach, so he's got a 2-inch reach advantage. And he does train out of my personal favorite camp, Sanford MMA. So that's a plus for him. I also want to say real quick, we've got 11 live viewers, so thank you guys all for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. Make sure to follow the channel. Make sure to follow my boy Pat. And thank you guys for tuning in. So for this fight, I like to bet early sometimes when odds first open up. For example, I just bet on a few fights for UFC Long Island, even though it's not coming up for 2 weeks. And when these lines first opened up, I did my quick tape, and I was like, all right, I like Du Plessis here. And then a few weeks pass, he starts becoming the favorite. I start doing my real tape study, and I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't see it. And then, like, you know, like sometimes you go into like tape, you already have a bet, so you're kind of already biased. And like that bias still, like, I was looking for a reason to stick with my play, and I just couldn't. So I had a unit on Du Plessis at plus 100, and I ended up hedging and placing 2 units on Brad Tavares at plus 105. And for me, it really comes down to this. Like, I've heard it said multiple times this week, Du Plessis is a moment winner, right? Not a round winner. He depends on these big power shots, and his striking defense on the numbers is really good, right? Like, I want to say it's like 64% or something like that. It's very clean, but it looks terrible to me. And the things he does are so awkward. I feel like he's constantly putting himself out of place. He's like depending on these big shots. Like, you watch his first fight against Marcus Perez. I'll say this. I do give a lot to like debut jitters. So I'll give him that. But like Marcus Perez was beating him at first. Like, he was winning that fight until he wasn't. And Marcus Perez is currently out there pillow fighting professionally. So, you know, and then he fought Trevin Giles. And I'm a Trevin Giles fan. I backed him a bunch. And even then, like, I didn't think he was winning that fight. Really, he might have been. The first round was close. He did well on the ground, but like, does he have a path on the ground here with Tavares? No, I don't think so. Like, how is he going to take Tavares down? And then like Tavares fought ACJ and then recently, and then he fought Akhmedov. Neither of them had a lot of success with him on the ground. And on the feet, I feel like Tavares is tighter. I think his striking defense is better, even though his numbers aren't as good. You got to remember that the sample size is way different. Like, Tavares has, I think, I'll check Weezy's numbers. I want to say 20 UFC fights, but it might be less.
Yeah, it's a lot, and he's maintained these stats over all of those fights. It's been a long time. Since 2010, he's been in the UFC. Yeah,
20 fights. So big time vet. I just feel like he's going to be cleaner on the feet, and if Du Plessis can't land that big shot, I don't think he's going to have the grappling to fall back on. So I am on Brad Tavares. I do have one of my crazy props still on Du Plessis. I'll mention it after you're done, Pat. But what are you feeling for this fight?
I did the same thing you did, where early on I was on the Du Plessis side. I'm sticking on that side. I do have a bet on Du Plessis at minus 120 odds. I didn't think that was that bad against, the older Brad Tavares, the guy who's, it's a momentum difference. They're always pitting Brad Tavares against these up and comers, and usually he shuts them down unless they're, sort of like special talent. You know what I mean? So guys like Edmund Shabazian, even though he fanned out, he was able to beat Brad Tavares. Guys like Yoel Romero, Robert Whitaker, Adesanya, these types of guys can beat Brad Tavares. And how Brad Tavares manages to stay with this great record all these years is he's able to shut down the takedown offense. He's always had like one of the top, either the top or the top 5 like best takedown defense ratings over all of those 20 fights. I mean, it's actually, if you watch that, which fight was it? I think it was the Antonio Carlos Jr. fight. He stuffs those takedowns like a professional, man. It's crazy the way that he can move. I like the size advantages. I like the youth advantage for Dricus Du Plessis. And what we saw on the regional scene in KSW, I think, is more telling of his skills than what we've seen in the UFC so far. You can only learn so much by beating Trevin Giles, or Perez. But when he fought Roberto Soldic twice back in KSW, and that guy's going to be in the UFC very soon. That guy is legitimate. Probably better than Du Plessis. They went 1-1. Du Plessis actually got knocked out by Roberto Soldic in the second fight. But, Yeah, even at UFC London, I think Soldic was there talking to the UFC about getting a contract. So he has some like better high-level competition outside of the UFC, and I think he's a higher volume striker than what we've seen so far. So I expect him to be able to like stick on the outside, use his physical advantages to get some points on the board against Brad Tavares. He'll probably try to challenge the takedown against the cage at times, but I really do think that he can just stick and move and probably get the better eye-catching shots. But it is a fight that you probably don't want to put too much juice on, so I'm glad the odds were close. Brad Tavares by decision is not a bad look either. I wouldn't hate that. He's 12-3 in decisions.
I was going to ask, I know that Brad Tavares is a big decision guy, but what do you think of the fight that doesn't go? It's -105 on Bet Online. It's kind of Duplessis' like main thing. And for Tavares, like, all right, say we get to round 3, can Tavares finish a tired Duplessis? I feel like it's possible.
It is possible. What is the odds on that again?
-105 on Bet Online.
-105. That's not bad. I could see that for a guy who's never been to the scorecards. That's never a bad look for almost even money on that. I don't hate it. But Brad Tavares, you're kind of looking at it's like a one-sided thing. You're looking for the Duplessis side for the fight doesn't finish, right? Either he gets the finish or he gets finished. I don't generally like betting those, but since the price is right, I wouldn't mind it. I want both guys to contribute to the fight not going. I want them to both have like a finishing potential, not just try to bank on one guy tiring out or one guy getting the finish.
Yeah. So I mentioned before I have a big prop here, and so I played Duplessis by sub for +2,000, and I'll tell you why. Like he doesn't have any UFC subs. Sure, he's only got 2 UFC fights.
I looked at that too.
He's got he has I think as many sub wins as he does KO wins. I think the difference might be like 1 or 2. And like, look, we're talking about, all right, how about this? Say like Duplessis rocks Tavares. Tavares goes for a takedown. Duplessis hits a guillotine. I get it. Like it's an unlikely thing with a power puncher like Duplessis, but +2,000, I like it.
No, the club and sub is definitely a good way to look for a guy who's durable, because sometimes that finish doesn't come and, he can just jump, like you said, into a choke if he's rocked, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to go completely out cold or get TKO'd by strikes. I like that a lot. I kind of looked at that prop as well.
Yeah, so, all right, we'll move right along. Always nice when we have a bit of a disagreement, but... All right, so here I've got another hot take. We've got Jessica Eye versus Maycee Barber. Eye is 15-10-0. She's 35 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach, and she is still training out of Strong Style Fight Team. Barber is 10-2-0. She's 24 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach, and she's currently training out of, I believe it's Alpha Male. All right, so Pat, I'm going to ask you to lead this one off. I got to run to the restroom real quick. I will be right back, all right?
Yeah. So Jessica Eye versus Maycee Barber, definitely like a young versus old. Jessica Eye has been in the UFC forever, mixed record, and she is pretty durable in her tenure, though. I mean, the only time she's ever gotten finished was by the champion, the best ever, Valentina Shevchenko, that iconic head kick knockout. So Jessica Eye, plus, I think she's around like +190. The underdog, Maycee Barber, pretty juiced, upwards of -225, -230, the favorite here. So she's coming off of a little bit of adversity. She had that fight with Miranda Maverick that was super close. Maycee Barber continues to be in very close fights because she loves to be the bully. She's small, she's young, but she's scrappy. I think, in my opinion, her stand-up really needs a lot of work. It needs to be tightened up, but at 24, she can shore up the holes in her game, but she loves bullying chicks against the cage, and that's really where she wins minutes. Probably going to look for the takedown quite a bit in this fight. I think that Jessica Eye, at 35 years old, and going to be the bigger woman here, I think that she actually does have more of a chance than the odds indicate, which is crazy because you're looking at a woman who is on quite a big, losing streak here. But if you look closely at those fights, if you look closely at the Jessica Eye versus, Jojo Calderwood, not as, uncompetitive as the stats would have you believe. Like if you look at the striking stats, you watch the fight itself, actually was pretty close in the stand-up. Calderwood was able to get up the higher numbers in the board, but, she got hit quite a bit as well and kind of stalked down in that fight. But fair play, she lost the fight, Jessica Ai. But she went in there against Jennifer Maia, who's a perennial, top 5 or top 10 talent in the division. Former title challenger Jennifer Maia. And that fight was, you could argue that fight was a Jessica Ai victory. And a lot of media members, if you go on MMA Decisions, actually called that for Jessica Ai. I can see why they didn't, and the judges gave it to Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia had more head strikes and definitely more damage done, more eye-catching shots. But Jessica Ai has, phenomenal stand-up when she can really put things together in a stand-up fight. So she's going to have to be, working really hard to, do some defensive grappling here and not get bullied against the cage by Maycee Barber. But I'm not going to lie to you. I think the bet here is not to lay the juice on Maycee Barber. I think it's to, I think this is dog or pass in my opinion. So obviously I'm going to pass on this one, unless there's some fat, juicy number associated with Jessica Ai by decision. But I would have to imagine that wouldn't be much more for that prop than it would be for her money line. So, Jessica Ai 12-8 in decision. So at least a positive record there. But Mike, as I was just explaining, I think I got a peek at your hot take. And on my channel, I did my full card breakdown, and I ended with dog or pass. I ended with Jessica Ai by decision or pass on this one. I'm not a big Maycee Barber fan, and if she gets extended in the stand-up with Jessica Ai, it could go really, really poorly for her down the stretch. So it's just Jessica Ai to just stay off the cage, stay on her feet, and try to use that veteran savvy and the better footwork.
Yeah, man. So I just came back, and I heard you saying dog or pass, and I couldn't agree more. So if you follow me on Twitter, I've been talking about it for a little bit. And before the show, so throughout the week, they hadn't dropped the Jessica Ai decision prop yet on any book that I could bet. But right before the show, FanDuel dropped her decision prop at plus 420.
Oh, really? And, I was just saying how I thought that it wouldn't be much more than her money line currently, but that's
double. So plus 420.
I mean, what do they think? She's going to knock out Maycee Barber or submit her? What do they think is going to happen?
It's FanDuel. FanDuel does some weird things with props sometimes, but I put a half.
I'm not saying. I mean, fair play to you if you have the balls to go out and that's a mispriced line plus 420 by decision. But I'm in no rush to bet Jessica Ai. I think in a lot of worlds Maycee Barber wins, but the odds are very off in this fight.
Yeah, I just personally, honestly, I have a hard time seeing how Maycee Barber I don't have a hard time seeing how she wins, but really, what does she do, right? She's mostly just a grappler. She loves pushing people against the fence, working in the clinch. She's very, very good in the clinch, super strong. But at range, I give it to Ai all day, right?
Yeah.
And Ai's not giving up a lot of control time either. She's fighting some really good women out here, and she's not giving up a ton of control time. So I don't know. I feel like I just felt like she can't. I don't think Ai's going to get a finish, right? So I'm not going to just play her money line plus 210. But if you're going to give me double on her decision prop when I think this fight is very close, I'll take Ai all day.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I wish I could find. I'll have to look at my books and see which gets closest to that number. I was explaining part of my reasoning for this was watching her most recent fight against Jennifer Maia, who is a former title challenger, always in the top 5 or top 10. And she could easily have won that fight, I mean, based on the numbers, she outstruck Jennifer Maia. It just wasn't headshots the way that Jennifer Maia was throwing against, Jessica Ai. The age, if you factor in the age and just in this division, especially at women's flyweight, being aggressive and being fearless like Maycee Barber, that gets you very far because, obviously these women at this weight class don't have the firepower all the time to really make you pay. If you did that in the men's flyweight, you'd probably get knocked out if you were as aggressive, sloppy, and fearless as Maycee Barber. But she gets away with it, and it looks very good to not be the timid woman in the ring.
All right, so we'll move right along. All right, I got not a hot take. I think we're most of MMA Twitter's on the same side, but I have a hot take about Muniz in general. So here we've got Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz. Uriah Hall is 17, 10, and 0. He's 37 years old, 6 feet tall with a 70. I'm going to call it an 80-inch reach. And he's training out of, I think it's Fight Ready right now. Do you know, Pat?
I have no idea.
I think it's Fight Ready. I'm not sure. I know it says Tiger Schulman's, but I'm positive that's wrong. So, and then on the other side, we got Andre Muniz, 22, 4, and 0.
Uriah Hall, you're saying? Is it Fortis?
Is it Fortis?
I think it's Fortis.
I thought fight ready, but either one works. Close enough. But Muniz, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach, and he is still training out of Tata Fight Team. And all right, so my hot take about Muniz is if he passes this test, like if he handles Hall, I think he's one of the most dangerous threats to Adesanya that there are in the middleweight division.
I like this. I like this take already.
Because listen, Adesanya is still getting taken down by guys like Vettori, and if Muniz gets him down, I'm really not positive that Adesanya can survive that stuff. In the striking, I think Adesanya will kill Muniz 9 out of 10 times, so that's why like it's still a stretch. But seeing how he does here, like we'll see. I don't know, man. But anyways, I think Muniz wins here. Obviously, I think he probably wins by sub. His striking is a work in progress, I would say, but it's serviceable. You know, he's still putting together good stuff. He's not completely terrible on the feet. He's not like super hittable. Is Uriah Hall better on the feet? Yeah, without a doubt, I think. But is it that much of a gap? No. But on the ground, the gap's crazy, in my opinion, right? Like, it's very helpful, at least it was for me, that Uriah Hall fought ACJ not too long ago, because I feel like the matchup here is extremely similar, right? Muniz is going to be looking to do the exact same things, except I think he does it better than an ACJ does. So I do like Muniz here. I think he's going to succeed with the takedowns. I think he's going to be able to take Uriah Hall's back. I'm not going to play the sub only because it's like, I think it's like minus something, but just the fact that it's minus like makes me already not interested. And I think it's possible for Muniz to just grind out a decision, have Uriah Hall's back for 2 rounds. So I do like Muniz. I have him parlayed, and I think I put 1.5 units on him money line as well. But that's me. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I'm on the Andre Muniz side for sure. I'm not in love with the money line. Isn't it somewhere around like minus 250, or is that grown a little bit? Let me see here. Yeah, so it's grown. Yeah, so okay. I'm even seeing like
300.
Yeah, see, that's insane, right? That's 75% odds that he basically submits, Uriah Hall before the bell is over. It's just Uriah Hall is 37 now. He's got all the physical gifts, always has since he's been in the UFC since like 2012 on The Ultimate Fighter, I want to say. And he's just so like timid and like he has no urgency early on. So the way that you would, effectively counter Andre Muniz is to be the faster starter, kind of match him there. Be super active early, slow him down, get some respect. And Andre Muniz is one of these guys who's, rarely going to the scorecards and, kind of fighting on a timer is the way I'd like to describe it. Usually getting his work done early, a ton of first round submissions, as we've seen in the UFC for his past, 3-win streak now. So I don't know. It's one of those things where you could just out of nowhere, you could see all of the Uriah Hall physical advantages, athleticism, knockout power come right back, and I wouldn't be too surprised by that. I think it's more likely that Andre Muniz is able to start fast, take him down, just like the ACJ fight. Uriah Hall got drugged down off the cage, body locked, taken to the mat. ACJ was all over his back, somehow didn't get the submission. He had 10 minutes of control time in that fight. So if you give 10 minutes to Andre Muniz, he'll definitely get the submission. And that's why I think he'll win. I think that was, just like you said, that was the fight in my tape study where I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a very similar matchup. And I think it'll go much worse for Uriah Hall here. So I'm taking Andre Muniz, but no bet for me on this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Please don't parlay Muniz to minus 300. Please don't do that. I don't think that's a smart move. At this point, I know I said I wouldn't play the sub prop at what it is, but if you want to play him, I would play the sub prop rather than money line at minus 300. You can get Muniz sub minus 110. I don't love it, but I like it more than money line minus 300.
What's the round 1 sub, I wonder?
Let's see.
If you mix that up, because he's had round 1 sub after round 1 sub. It's starting to get kind of scary at this point. Maybe he won't do it this time. He's done it 3 times in a row, but I think Uriah Hall is a pretty good opponent to get that done again.
Round 1 sub is plus 250.
Nothing, dude. Come on. Got to be more than that.
Yeah, that is not good enough. But all right, we'll move right along. Won't waste our time on a minus 300.
That's crazy.
All right, I got a super hot take here. my take is so hot here that Lou got upset at me. So here we've got Donald Cerrone versus Jim Miller 2. Cerrone is 36, 16-0. He's 39 years old, 6'1", 73-inch reach, training out of BMF Ranch, his own gym. But I do know that for the Lozon fight, he was also spending time at Syndicate, so that's worth noting. Miller on the other side, 34, 16-0, 38 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach, training out of Sussex County MMA still. And I think the most important thing to mention here is we're fighting at 170 here. This isn't lightweight. And that changed a lot for me, honestly. Like, if it was at lightweight, all right, like, Cerrone's already not durable. He'd be going down to 155. Who knows if he knew this fight was coming? His fight with Lozon kept getting canceled. So then it would be really questionable, right? As it is, betting on him in any way is questionable. But we're at 170, right? He's got a size difference here. And I think that, like, I don't think Miller's a very good distance striker. You watched their first fight. It was in 2013, so you obviously can't take much from it. But you could take a few things. Miller had a hard time closing the distance, and I don't think that's going to change much. Cerrone's still got those kicks. He's still got those knees. He's still got that length. Miller couldn't really take him down or hold him down. I don't think that's going to change much. I think the main difference here is that Cerrone starts super slow, and he's very hittable, especially in round one. So I think Miller can catch him with his hooks. I think up close, Miller's been really dangerous. That's where he found success in both of his last two fights. It was up close in the pocket, and he knocked those two guys out. But it's also worth noting, like, all right, Eric Gonzalez, like, at least as of now, he's not UFC caliber, in my opinion. And Moda, I think he will be, but, like, he's not quite there just yet. So knocking that out doesn't show me too much. Do I think he can finish Cerrone? Like I said, yeah, in the pocket, but he's like a minus 210 favorite. His inside the distance isn't that great either. And Cerrone by decision is plus 500. And I like that. That's what I'm going to play. I'm probably going to play it for a quarter unit only. So not a big risk, but a good reward. And I just feel like if Miller can't finish him in round one, it's going to be a close fight. You watch Jim Miller against Vink Pichel, right? Pichel is definitely a fresher person than Cerrone is right now. That's for sure. But Miller couldn't find success grappling there, and he ended up losing the fight. I don't think he's going to find the success grappling here. So I feel like Cerrone by decision, while it sounds crazy in 2022, betting Cerrone by decision when he's 39, I like it. And I also want to mention this. He went 3 rounds with Nico Price. I know some people say, like, Nico Price wasn't himself, but he went 3 rounds with Nico Price, and I think that means a lot when you're saying that someone like Cerrone's washed and he'll get KO'd right away. Yeah, Morono did it afterwards in round 1, but you watched that, and that round wasn't by any means like a runaway Morono round. It was close until it wasn't. So, Cerrone decision sprinkle for me. What are you feeling, Pat?
It's not bad at all. That was you said plus 400 something?
Plus 500.
Oh, okay. That's more than the decision prop for the last fight with Lozon. So, yeah, I mean, everybody was on Lozon last time. I was on Cerrone just because of the activity. And, I kind of got a little bit of redemption when that fight was called off. I mean, not only did Lozon not get that MMA Twitter favorite prop, that round 1 KO, but he basically was sitting in a chair too long and got TKO'd. So I felt a little bit better about that because that round 1 KO is never going to happen. But, yeah, I'm taking Jim Miller here. The line is way off at minus, what is it, 220, minus 250, something crazy like that, minus 225 I'm seeing. The line is off for sure, but just like I took the guy that was more active in Donald Cerrone over Lozon, Jim Miller is much more active over Donald Cerrone, right? He's actually having success. He's fought twice and has had 2 stoppage wins since Cerrone's even gotten, his like 6th loss in a row, so the thing that I don't like, the thing that's stopping me from loading up on a Jim Miller bet here is not only the mispriced money line, but again, another guy that fights on a timer. Jim Miller has not won a fight past 1.5 rounds since 2016. He has not won a fight after 1.5 rounds since 2016 when he beat Thiago Alves, who was past his prime at that point. So I am going to take Jim Miller. I think he, obviously he's a little bit younger. This is in a weight class he's not accustomed to, but maybe that'll help out with his weight cut. I mean, God only knows, speaking of weight cuts, God only knows if like Donald Cerrone will even make it to this fight. who knows? We've been talking about Cerrone fights for so long now, like most of 2022. I think the fight doesn't go is probably the way to go here for sure still. But if you got the nice odds, like on a Cerrone decision prop, then obviously I think that's more likely than the odds would indicate for your plus 500. But still, you got a guy in Jim Miller who, does not find success very late, but I think he can jab his way into range early on in this fight, maybe get the stoppage that way, the way he has been against these younger Dana White Contender Series guys, so I'm going to call a stoppage victory for Jim Miller early here. And I'm just liking his momentum so far, but no bet for me.
Yeah, I see a lot of people on the fight doesn't go, kind of like they were on Lozon and Cerrone, and I totally get it. I can't get there at minus 200, man. I feel like if these two don't finish each other early, I think we're gonna go to a decision. So,
and Jim Miller doesn't necessarily fall apart late. He just doesn't win.
Slows down.
His activity falls apart, and he just kind of stands there. So, I agree with all of your points. This is a very it's kind of like the Lozon fight. It's even more sketchy in some ways with the weight class change and the line being the way it is. Probably dog or pass, but I'm calling Jim Miller to win this. I'm just going to pass in the fight.
I think pass is probably the smartest thing you can do. But all right, so here's another. Honestly, every single fight here pretty much is a fun one. That's the best part about this card. But
I love this card.
Yeah, it's a great one, man. So here we got Ian Garry versus Gabe Green. Ian Garry, man, he cracks me up so much with the things he says. And not like I'm laughing at him, not with him, but it's just too funny. But Ian Garry, 9-0, 24 years old, 6'3", 74-inch reach, training out of my favorite camp, Sanford MMA. On the other side, we got Gabe Green. He's 11-3-0. He's 29 years old, 5'10", so he's giving up quite a bit of height. 73-inch reach, and he is still training out of Tracy Hess Subfighter MMA. I forgot who it was. I think Lou last week was like telling me how a lot of these camps sound made up, and they really do. Tracy Hess is Subfighter MMA. But so for me, I was super high on Ian Garry coming into the UFC. When I heard he was signed, I was super hype. I thought he was going to be a really good prospect. I saw him live at MSG for his debut. I had a ton of money on him, and he had me stressed. Because Jordan Williams was freaking piecing this guy up in the first round, and that is not a good thing. Sure, all right, we can give him the debut jitters, whatever. Then he fights Darian Weeks. I tried to fade him there too. He won that fight fair and square, but I felt like he still didn't show much. Like, he's a very good distance striker. He's he keeps everything very tight, very slick. Like, his striking, he's talented. I can't take that away from him. I just don't feel that he's like some kind of world beater. His grappling, I think, is maybe even being underrated a bit. We haven't seen it in the UFC, but in his fight before the UFC, I'm blanking on the fella's name. It was Jack for a title. Yeah, I think so. It was for a title.
Jack Grant over in Cage. Where was it? Cage Warriors.
Yeah, and I thought his ground game looked very, very solid there. So I'll give him that. I just feel like I'm on the Gabe Green side. So I just feel like Ian Garry, he's this clean, technical fighter, and I don't know how he's going to do in chaos. And Gabe Green is going to bring nothing but chaos. Like we saw in his Johan Lainez fight, right? He got dropped. That didn't matter to Gabe Green. He kept coming, and eventually he was the one who dropped Lainez and finished him. So the way I kind of see this happening is I see Green getting hit quite a bit, maybe in round one, but just pushing forward. And eventually I see him breaking Ian Garry. I see some people on a late finish for Gabe Green. And, you did Bet Elevator with me, so you already know I love my round 3 props. And I considered it. I just feel like Ian Garry doesn't really fade in round 3. I feel like his cardio is still pretty good, so I don't know if I'm going to play that. But I like Gabe Green to break him either by decision or late finish. But I do like Gabe Green. I think it's going to be close, but I got him at good dog odds. I think I got plus 145 or something. Now he's like, oh, you can get plus 160 on Bet Online now.
Oh, God. I'm going to have to go back to the well on this one.
And money's only coming in on Ian Garry. So, honestly, if you're on if you want to bet Green, maybe just wait at this point. You can get better odds maybe later on. How about you, Pat? What are you thinking?
Oh yeah, especially I'm like you. I like Ian Garry. To have a nice flashy, Irishman come in off of Cage Warriors, clean record. A nice, definitely like a sniper of a counter striker. Just like you mentioned against Jordan Williams. Isn't that fun when your bet cashes with like 1 second left in the round? There's just like no more relief than that. He was you're like, oh man, maybe he's not the greatest prospect in the world in his debut, and then he catches a perfect counter, right? And folds in that 1 second left. So, that's not going to happen with Gabe Green. I don't think Gabe Green is just so tough, and so far Ian Garry hasn't had anybody really that tough. That's gonna, what happens when he faces that brick wall of an opponent. Jack Grant was a good test in Cage Warriors, like you mentioned, 5-round fight. But again, Ian Garry was largely leading the dance there, even on the ground at points as well. So, I like Gabe Green here. I have already, I started doing this. I knew I was going to load up on the underdog Gabe Green because I think this line should be flipped. I think Gabe Green should be the favorite here. So whenever I see that, that's when I load up on the underdog. So I put a unit on him, like, when it was like plus 140. I put a unit on him when it was plus 145, and maybe I'll load up another one. But I also have Gabe Green by submission at plus 900. I think Gabe Green can definitely get a club and sub type of situation here, or maybe just sub him, take him down and ground him would be the smart way to go in general. You've got a good mover in Ian Garry. I'm not taking much away from him, but he's still a 24-year-old kid with very good physical attributes. And sometimes these guys don't make big improvements at this age and with all these physical attributes until they get that first loss and they taste defeat. They take some time off, come back, realize what level they're truly fighting at in the UFC and what improvements and what level of training they have to bring. So sometimes that happens. And when that happens for Ian Garry, I think he does have a pretty bright future in the UFC potentially. But now's not the time. He's facing a guy who's still in his 20s as well. Gabe Green's 29. And definitely the shorter guy here with the shorter reach, but he's got, just such physical attributes, so strong. And I think he can peel Ian Garry to the ground and probably tap him out here, if not ground and pound him. So I like Gabe Green. And yeah, he didn't just get dropped by Johan Lines. He got folded. He got like his head was like in his lap on the ground. And I don't even know how he came back from that. I had Johan Lines by KO, so I was pretty much already counting my money. And then he came back to life somehow like The Undertaker. So I like Gabe Green here. I'm very confident. It's rare that one of my more confident picks of the entire event is an underdog, but this is that spot for me.
I feel you, man. I'm also tempted on that sub. I just feel like, I don't know. I'm not sure if Gary's like, because I feel like Garry has good BJJ also. So that's where I'm like a little frozen.
He has one submission win. You don't see him working on the ground that much. He might, but the one submission win he had, I watched that fight. It was like his second pro fight. And it was against an absolute bum. Like the kid, like basically just like kneeled on the ground and didn't really know what was happening. He didn't like Ian Garry was like trying to figure out how to do a rear naked choke. Like he's literally like, how do I do this? Like, where do I put my arms? Like, does my elbow go to the right or does it go under the chin? And the guy's just sitting there, like not even defending it. His hands are free, and you should watch the fight. It's hilarious.
McGregor, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like even the ref was like, what the hell is happening? Do I stop this? I don't know. But it didn't look that impressive to me. He got reversed in that Jack Grant fight on the ground several times, and I think this bigger, stronger Gabe Green is going to, just ragdoll him on the ground. So I like that sub prep.
I think I might join you there, man. I think I might. But all right, so moving right along, we got another banger. All right, so here we got Brad Ridell versus Jalin Turner. Ridell is 10-2-0, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 70. Wow, topology is so weird. Let's call it a 72-inch reach, and he's training out of City Kickboxing. Turner on the other side is 12-5-0, 27 years old, 6'3", so he's got quite a bit of height on this guy. 76-inch reach, and he's training out of RVCA. And man, when this line first opened up and I hadn't done any tape yet, I was like, people are crazy for betting Turner. Like, what in the world? Like, I thought it was all recency bias because Turner's been looking fantastic. And then I went back on it on the tape and I bet Turner. I ended up betting Turner. So for me, it really comes down to this, right? Like, Brad Ridell is a really good striker, but it's in close. It's not at distance. And if he can't close the gap against Turner, what is he going to do here? Turner is huge. He's extremely strong. He has no business being in this weight class, but somehow he is. He's good at using that length. His combos are really good. I really love his striking. And recently his grappling's been legit too. I don't know. I just feel like I think he can take down Brad Ridell. I think he can push him up against the fence and do work there. I think at distance he can do work. My big concern is in the pocket. That's where I'm worried. I'm worried about the exchanges in the pocket because I ran back Jalin Turner versus that bum Brock Weaver, the guy who was over there fucking having dogs fight each other. I hate that guy. But Jalin Turner, when he fought him, he beat him. He beat him good. But in the pocket, Brock Weaver was landing way too much, an uncomfortable amount. And if Ridell lands like that, it might be night-night. So I'm concerned about that. But overall, I'm a big size guy, big size bully guy. I think it means a lot. And I also think he's got the grappling, and I think he can hang in the striking, if not be winning the exchanges because of the distance. So I do really like Turner. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, that's one of my other money line bets is Jalin Turner. I got him at minus 125. I wouldn't, I'd look for the inside the distance and see what that is too. But the money line is so close to even money that at that point, why risk it? He might win by decision if it goes that way. Brad Ridell is tough. And I like what you said. I think skill for skill, kickboxing for kickboxing, Brad Ridell is probably better in some ways than Jalin Turner. I don't know if he has that same fight-ending power that Jalin Turner gets, but skill for skill, like the fundamental striking. The only thing that Brad Ridell is going to have an issue with is the size here. If they were the same size, I would probably favor Brad Ridell in this fight. Brad Ridell is going to have to take this to the mat and get Jalin Turner out of his element and hold him down. So far, I don't really have a high opinion of him being able to hold down Jalin Turner. I think Jalin Turner is going to be able to threaten with enough submissions to keep on shifting the position of Brad Ridell so that he's forced to, either wall walk against the cage or just, scramble to his feet and keep striking at range. So I like Jalin Turner here. I think he can get this done inside the distance, maybe around 2. Brad Ridell is tough. I mean, even that he kind of ate that spinning heel kick from Rafael Fiziev, he hit the spinning heel kick and kind of took it like a champ, honestly. Like, obviously he was unable to continue fighting, but a lot of people be out cold from that. So I like the toughness of Brad Ridell. And again, it's just the unfair size advantage of Jalin Turner, but I'm going to go back to the Jalin Turner well here. I think I've bet him like twice in a row now. So I like him to win this fight.
Yeah, I've been backing him also. He's been a money tree for me. But
like you said, the issue is, I mean, again, if this was a wider line, then I'd be more apt to maybe bet Brad Ridell or just stay off of this. But since the line is so close, I definitely think that I'd bet this up to like minus 150 Jalin Turner probably and still feel pretty good about it. But yeah, it'll be up to Jalin Turner to, make too looping of a hook, get in close, get too cocky, think he can move out of the way when Brad Ridell chases after him and gets one of those short hooks. And make you put him out that way. But, because Jalin Turner is, but even though the toughness of Brad Ridell, Jalin Turner, I just spoke on the Gabe Green's toughness all day. He KO'd him very early back in Bellator. So Jalin Turner can do some things that a lot of people can't at this weight class. So I like him a lot to win this fight. But yeah, there is maybe the fight doesn't go. If that's juicy enough, I could see that as well. But I don't know. Brad Ridell does have a chance to win this fight, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not counting him out. I like Brad Ridell a lot, but I think the physicality is too much.
Agreed. But all right, so this one honestly is fascinating to me. I've seen a lot of hot takes. So we got Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena. Lawler is 29, 15-0. He's 40 years old now. 5'11", 74-inch reach, and he is training out of Sanford MMA. Barberena on the other side is 17, 8-0, 33 years old, 6 feet tall, 72-inch reach, and he's training out of MMA Lab. And this one's just crazy because it's like Barberena's so much younger, but he's like really not because of just the wear and tear on his body. Ever since that surgery, he just hasn't been the same. Like the Anthony Ivy fight to me was like an eye-opener. That was problematic because if you've watched Anthony Ivy since then, he's been the jumping board for people to get into the UFC. They knock him out on the regionals and then they get signed. So that was not a good look. And since then, he's been getting taken down constantly. Witt was taking him down. Even in his last fight against Darian Weeks, he's getting taken down. A lot of concerns. So when I was first looking at this, I was taping it. I kind of liked Robbie Lawler. I felt like he looked good in his last fight against Nick Diaz, of course. So that's some context to the situation. Nick Diaz coming back. I think the last fight for him before that was like 2015, right? Something like that. And yeah, Lawler looked good in that fight. But again, Nick Diaz was landing. He was getting his flow going. I don't know. I feel like right now, striking wise, I still give the advantage to Lawler. I can't expect him to hold up. I feel like over 3 rounds, if Barberena has the same kind of wars that he's been having, the same kind of war he had with Brown, I can't see Lawler lasting. So I ended up taking Barberena instead, even though I started wanting to bet Lawler. I did 0.9 units on Barberena. I think I got like plus. I got plus for sure, plus 105. And then I took 0.1 unit on him in round 3 at by KO at plus 1800. I just think there's a good chance that he wears on Lawler and breaks him late or just wins a decision because of that. But I think it's going to be close and super exciting. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, this is a really fun fight. And it's fights like these that are kind of odd mismatches you never thought you would see that end up being the most exciting ones. Just to go off on a little bit of a tangent here about these big pay-per-view cards where they have a lot of names that people know, guys that have been in the UFC for a long time. At first glance, I'm like, oh, this tape study will be easy because I know these guys so well. I've been watching them for like the better part of 2 decades. And then I end up falling into like a tape study rabbit hole of watching all these fights from back in the day, trying to find tendencies, edges against the money line. And then I'm like, wait a second. All this stuff was like, I just watched 2 hours of tape study on Robbie Lawler that doesn't even reflect who he truly is. And I ended up realizing that like all of these like newer guys on these fight night cards with these no-name guys, those are a lot easier and quicker to tape study. But that's just something I realized when I was taping Robbie Lawler's fights because he doesn't fight the same way he used to. That urgency is gone. That viciousness is gone. At 40 years old, it's not there anymore. Even against Nick Diaz, which should have been a walk in the park for him. It took him a long time to finally break down, fat Nick Diaz against the cage. And even Nick Diaz was standing there, wasn't really respecting any of the power coming the way of from Robbie Lawler. So I still think that his striking is better than Bryan Barberena's by a long shot, but I think Bryan Barberena is going to have a better point scoring style to win this fight. I mean, he throws with reckless abandon, but he throws. And Robbie Lawler is a guy, even when he was a champion in various organizations and the UFC, he got away with winning rounds based off of damage and then knocking out his opponent, not off of the numbers. He would get outstruck on the board against guys like Rory McDonald or Johnny Hendricks. But since he was the more effective, more powerful, more menacing, damaging striker, he'd win the round or win the fight by stoppage. So he still has the legendary durability, only been knocked out twice in his entire life. I don't see this fight ending inside the distance. I really don't. I think if one guy does end the fight in the distance, it would be Robbie Lawler coming back to life and doing something, disgusting to Bryan Barberena. But I think Bryan Barberena, just over the course of the fight, will march forward and just put enough, leg kicks and 1-2s to the body, sloppy looping hooks up top that might land from time to time. And I think he wins this fight just purely off of the numbers in a very close fight. So it's a pass betting-wise for me, of course. Like you mentioned, Bryan Barberena has had a lot of outside the cage injuries and adversities to come back from. And for that reason, I'm not even going to, like you said, the youth advantage means nothing to me here. It's just solely a matter of Robbie Lawler doesn't seem to be as dangerous as he used to be, and I think Bryan Barberena just throws more.
Yep. I'm glad you said at least that Lawler's a better striker, that you think he's a better striker.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I thought I was crazy for that, but
no, not at all. But it's just that viciousness, that killer instinct is gone,
Yeah. But all right, so this next one is another banger. We got Pedro Munhoz versus Sean O'Malley. Munhoz is 19-7-0, 35 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. And camp-wise, let me see what I have for him. I don't have anything, so we're going to go with Black House MMA. Pat, do you know any better than that?
No, I don't. I'm not good at keeping up where these guys are currently training at, to be honest.
Yeah, I try to check their Instagrams, and then if it doesn't say anything, I'll like try to catch the James Lynch interviews and see if I can get it, but do my best. Can't always get it, but Sean O'Malley on the other side, 15-1-0, 16-0 if you ask him. 27 years old, 5'11", 72-inch reach, so crazy size difference here. And he's training out of the MMA lab, which I think on its own that's a huge plus because the MMA lab for bantamweights is incredible. If you look at who's there, you got Casey Kenny, Sean O'Malley, Kyler Phillips, And I think I'm missing somebody, but even just those three, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, what a training room.
You know, like
crazy.
that's like just those three are all contenders in the bantamweight.
Yeah, you can't slack off there at all.
So that already is a big plus for me. And yeah, I mean, I think my take's just the same as most people here. I think that more than likely Sean O'Malley pieces up Pedro Munhoz from a distance. I think over 3 rounds he wins a decision. I don't see him finishing Munhoz. Super durable. O'Malley's so good. He's so good. Like everybody loves to hate him. I love to hate him too, but he's a legit talent. His striking is really good. Like he's so clean. He's so crisp. The angles are so good. The concern, I guess, is the legs, right? For some reason, no matter what, like he's always taking damage to the legs. Not just the Chito Vera fight. Like I was watching him against Paiva. Paiva was finding a lot of success with the leg kicks. So that's concerning against a guy like Munhoz. But I can't be betting somebody just because I think they can win off of leg kicks. Like I can't do that. I think O'Malley's going to win this fight. I think he's just the better distance striker, and I think that's where we're going to be for 3 rounds. So I like O'Malley. I have him parlayed, and I think I'm going to play his decision prop at plus 200. Not sure yet. I'm tempted, but what are you thinking, Pat?
I got the decision prop for Sean O'Malley bet at plus 150. That was the best I could get it at the time. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm on the same boat as you. I think he can outstrike Pedro Munhoz all day long. Just the physical advantages. And Pedro Munhoz is just kind of on a bit of a slump here too. The age difference means a lot to this weight class, 35 years old. Pushing that upper limit for a bantamweight. And Sean O'Malley is still a young 27-year-old. You know, I'm glad he's finally starting to get some of these bigger names. But his manager is a very, very smart guy because this is the one guy that you'd want to choose at this level that's like just above you in the rankings, but, you know, lost 4 of his last 5, all by decision. So, again, in Pedro Munhoz's credit, he's got more experience than anybody else at bantamweight, more fights than anybody else besides Uriah Faber. And the last 4 guys that he's lost to were all either current or former champions. So nothing against him there, but it's just being 5'6" with a 65-inch reach versus a guy in Sean O'Malley, you know, almost 6 foot tall. And yeah, like you mentioned, he is a clown. He's fun to make fun of. He's almost, in a way, it reminds me of like a Colby Covington, where you hear all the goofy things that comes out of his mouth, and then you forget when it's fight night, like, oh, this guy actually is not a goofball in the ring. Like he's, you know, he actually fights to win, and he's got a good strategy. You know, I mean, of course, Sean O'Malley does showboat from time to time, but when you're in there against Chris Moutinho, I guess you can do that. But that would be so funny. Like, I do have a bet on Sean O'Malley decision, just a 1 unit on plus 150 there, but that would be so funny and so ironic if he's able to be the first one to knock out Pedro Munhoz, but could not knock out Chris Moutinho. I would find that to be the most ironic MMA thing that might actually happen here. So, yeah, just to transform that giant, you know, minus 300 money line to a plus number for the decision. I like that.
Is it minus 300 now?
It's getting up there, yeah. There's some books where it's minus 280, going up to minus 300, of course. And by Saturday, this will all be minus 300, I'm sure. But, you know, the Sean O'Malley casual love comes in. But I could see him winning this fight inside the distance. I mean, eventually the chin cracks, and this is going to be largely on the feet since Munhoz doesn't wrestle. So you're going to have a guy in Sean O'Malley who, lands over 8 significant strikes per minute on average over 9 fights. And he's going to have a lot of chances to, you know, test that old man chin of Pedro Munhoz. It might crack eventually, but I'll take the odds of this going 3 rounds for a plus 150 number.
All right. We've been lining up a lot, Pat. I'm happy.
Yeah, I know.
I'm happy.
Well, I tried not to peek at your betting slate that you posted earlier. I wanted to be surprised, but I saw that. I'm like, oh, okay, I feel better about what I've been choosing here.
Yeah, even me and Lou, like, if anybody's watched us on the bet elevator, me and Lou never agree. Literally, we never agree. And this week, we're agreeing on most spots. So it's going to be an interesting week.
Sometimes that scares me. But this fight next, I need your help on because this is probably the most baffling fight for me on the entire card here. So,
all right. So this is a good one, man. We got Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. Strickland is 25-3-0, 6'1", 76-inch reach. And I believe he's at Extreme Couture right now. He does do a lot of gym hopping. So that, in my opinion, that's a good thing. I love that, getting different looks. And then Pereira on the other side is 5'1-0, 34 years old, 6'4". So he's a big man here. And 80-inch reach. So he's got 4 inches reach, 3 inches height. And he's training out of, I believe he's training with Glover over at Texera MMA. So
Yeah, that's the big narrative for this fight, right?
Yeah. So, man, first off, I'll say this. I don't normally like betting against the UFC. You know, like when they clearly want to set somebody up, for example, Sean O'Malley and Munhoz, right? It's clear who they want to win that fight. It's not the 35-year-old Munhoz. It's Sean O'Malley. It's the same thing here. So I don't normally like betting against the UFC, but they're not always right. It doesn't always work out for them. And I think this might be one of those spots. I am on Strickland, and for me, it really comes down to this. You're giving me Sean Strickland at plus money, but he's better literally everywhere except the distance striking, distance kickboxing. He's so much more well-rounded. He's been in this game for a minute. He's lost. He's won. He's gone through it all. He's had to improve. He's had to fix things. He's been finished. He's finished. He has been finished, right? I didn't just say that out of my ass.
Yeah, Dos Santos, Zaleski Dos Santos.
Yeah, with the kick, right?
Kamaru Usman also knocked him down, but it was ultimately a decision loss.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, similar to what a lot of people are saying, as long as he doesn't decide to just jab and stand here flat-footed like he did against Uriah Hall or Hermanson, I really think he can win this fight. I think he can hang on the feet, and if he grapples, I think it's over. Because, look, you look at Pereira, you can say, sure, Sean Strickland doesn't really grapple, fine, but neither does Michailidis. And what did Michailidis do in round number 1?
Right.
He held him down, and he won that round from grappling, and that is not a grappler right there. Sean Strickland, at least, he's competing in BJJ competitions. He's out here practicing his grappling. It's something he does, you know? So, yeah, Sean Strickland's an idiot. He's a lovable idiot, but I think that he's smart in the cage, and I think that he's going to take down Pereira, and I think that he will. I don't know if he's going to sub him, but I think he's going to win the fight. I think the way he loses here is if he just gets lost in himself and wants to stand and gets finished. But otherwise, I think he's going to be fine. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, that's the baffling part of this is, Sean Strickland, kind of like the guys we just talked about. Like I compared Colby Covington to Sean O'Malley. Both guys are clowns outside of the ring. It's good for their PR and things like that, like their popularity, but they get it together and they're very smart fighters in the octagon. Sean Strickland, I don't know about this fight. Like, is he going to be the tough guy here and just, be fearless and stand there against Pereira? I hope not. I hope he realizes that I think he's like number 4 in the division, and he's going to be next in line for a title shot if he can just win this fight and do it the smart way, the path of least resistance, which would be to, he's going to have to stand there for a bit, not make it obvious, and rush for a takedown and eat a knee, George Masvidal style. But, if he, in the Uriah Hall fight, this is a good recent example. He waited until round 2 to even, attempt takedowns, and it was until round 3 that he was able to be successful with them. So that'll be too long against Alex Pereira. He's going to have to start doing this early with some urgency. And I think that's why this is a coin flip fight. I think it's 50-50 if I can trust Sean Strickland to do that, So otherwise, yeah, I have to pick Sean Strickland here as a prediction just because I'm the type of guy where it's like I'm going to take the more well-rounded MMA experience over a guy. We're talking about a 25-3 record. That ain't nothing with 15 UFC fights, for Sean Strickland. So versus a guy who's had 6 MMA fights total, I mean, even though he's had all the combat experience outside of that, I mean, this is still MMA, and I have to fade the guy who's got the least well-rounded skills. He shows glimpses, especially in the Bruno Silva fight. Like, he showed glimpses of having, digging underhooks against the cage, some get-up ability there, some takedown defense, some basic takedown defense. But, yeah, like you mentioned, against Sean Strickland, who's had years of doing this, there's no way he can defend against that over the course of, a couple rounds here. So, that Sean Strickland submission prop is probably out there. It's probably juiced.
You beat me too. It's not juiced. It's plus 1,200.
Oh, plus 1,200? Okay. I mean, that's pretty good, I guess. Yeah, I was thinking it would be less than plus 1,000, but
I hit that shit.
Oh, did you? Okay, that's good. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's great, but it's a pass betting-wise for me because Sean Strickland could just give him one moment, one mistake, one opportunity to get that flying knee or that that hook, that looping hook that comes out of nowhere, followed up by knees and kicks until he's he doesn't have to get knocked out cold. He just get TKO, just like a flurry of strikes when Alex Pereira smells blood. So it's a risky fight. It's my lowest confident pick on the entire card. Sean Strickland's probably a decision win.
All right, and now we're up to the good stuff, the really good stuff. All right, so. Oh, man. We got Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 3. Alexander Volkanovski is 24-1-0, 33 years old, 5'6", 72-inch reach, training out of, it's not, I know it's not Tiger Muay Thai. It's not even always City Kickboxing. I know his main camp is something else. I don't remember the name off the top of my head.
I don't either.
But I know that he has a head coach who's not at City Kickboxing. Obviously a legend for getting Volkanovski to where he's gotten him. So good camp. And then Holloway on the other side, 23-6-0, 30 years old, 5'11", 69-inch reach. And who knows what his gym is right now? Zoom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, his Zoom sparring sessions.
Call of Duty. I don't know, but it works for him, right? I mean, that's probably where his durability comes because he's never freaking sparring. But
yeah,
for me, man, this one's crazy. So I bet Volk in their second fight. I think Holloway won that fight. I thought Holloway won on first watch. I thought Holloway won later. And then when I rewatched it yesterday, I still think Holloway won. And I don't know. It's like, because there's this narrative of like Volk's this GOAT, right? We're starting to believe he's one of the best ever. And he is for sure. Even losing to Holloway wouldn't mean he's not the best ever. He's been killing it. He's been looking good. He's been improving. He completely dismantled the Korean Zombie, made him look like he didn't belong there at all. Against Ortega, he looked beautiful, I just feel like not enough has changed where I think this fight's going to be that much different from either of the first two. And I feel like Holloway, he's already learned his lesson with those leg kicks. Like we saw that in the second fight. And when Volkanovski saw he was losing, what did he do? He grappled. All right. So yeah, I expect Holloway to expect that as well. There's the question of which one shows up, right? If the Holloway that beat up Calvin Kattar comes, then the odds are even better, right, for Holloway. If the same one that beat Yair Rodriguez comes, it's all right. It's a bit more questionable. It wasn't the best performance. I think Volk probably wins. I really do. I decided right away that I'm not going to bet a lot on this fight at all because I'm a huge Holloway fan and because I don't like to bet with my heart. So right away, I was like, I'm not taking a side here. And I did bet the over 4.5. I parlayed it twice with O'Malley and with Adesanya. And then I also parlayed over 2.5 with the over 2.5 for Adesanya Cannonier. So that's my main play on this fight because I do think, rematches don't always go the same. That's for sure. And I don't know for sure who wins this fight. But I have a very hard time seeing a finish here. I really do. But I also did... All that said, I did throw a half unit on Max Holloway by decision. Plus 320, just a half unit. I still think it's a close fight. I think it's anyone's game. And at plus 320, I'm willing to take that shot. And then if I lose that, I do think I'm going to hopefully at least hit my overs. So super close fight. I can't wait to watch it. But what are you thinking, Pat?
Yeah, I'm going to be really boring for these next two fights. Not much action on them at all. I mean, this is such a great fight between Holloway and Volkanovski. And these guys, they're like almost in their own weight class almost because the rest of the featherweight division is not up to par with them yet. Bryan Ortega is probably the closest, but he's lost to both of them, right? The Korean Zombie had a nice little resurgence, but, he clearly saw what level he's at on somewhat short notice. I mean, who's up next? Josh Emmett, like Arnold Allen. I don't know. I mean, these guys are just on their own here. So it's hard for me to see either guy. It's hard for me to view either of these two guys as an underdog. Unfortunately, that is Max Holloway. I am fans of both of these guys, just like you are. But Max Holloway is now, it's getting into like almost you have to bet it. If you're going to bet a side, it's got to be Max Holloway. This fight should be as close as it was the first couple times. We've had the privilege of having 10 full rounds of these guys, 50 full minutes of these guys to tape study and figure out where the line should be. And the bookies are now saying that this is like a 2-1 for Volkanovski when both fights were a coin flip. So this, if you're the type of bettor that's just here to, and this is a great strategy, just take advantage of a mispriced money line. That mispriced money line is definitely, the plus money on Max Holloway. You got to take that. And I like your decision prop because I don't see this going the distance either. I'm not going to get there myself. I could see either guy winning this fight. If there is somebody at this point in the featherweight division in 2022 to defeat Volkanovski, it would be Max Holloway. It's the guy who's absorbed more strikes and never been knocked down than anybody else in history ever will be again. the guy who's got weaponized cardio, the same as Volkanovski. The only thing that would, when it gets this close, now I'm thinking about like the narrative a little bit, like the injuries for Max Holloway. What's the training been like? He's like been put out by injuries like twice this year. I don't know. Were those ever disclosed what those were? Do you know, Mike?
You're on mute. Yeah. I honestly don't know. No, I remember that Volk was calling him out at first. He was like, oh, he did it on purpose. But
it was like twice now. It's been like undisclosed injuries. So, I mean, that's smart when you're getting ready for a trilogy bout, not disclose what weakness that is. But that's on my mind a little bit as far as like, this is so razor close. I'm not really betting it either way. But, the side of Volkanovski is really reaching out to me. And then just that fight that he had before Korean Zombie against Ortega last September. I mean, my God, the ability to come back from adversity the way that he did, that is admirable. Now, I've seen Holloway display the same amount of heart in his fights. I'm not saying that he's got more heart than Holloway, but Holloway's usually doing the best when he's in the driver's seat. We've seen, now Volkanovski have to literally come back from, having no blood in his brain on a couple of occasions in that fight and still dominantly win the rest of it. And I admire that a lot. He's got good striking. I don't think that the size advantage will be that big of a deal. He's very good at getting inside of range, getting right back outside of harm's way. So as a pick, I'm going to pick Volkanovski, but the way these lines are, you got to be a Max Holloway better. This is the only time you're going to get plus money on Holloway until he's so far past his prime that he's shot,
And right now it's plus 180 on Holloway and growing.
Isn't that, I mean, just listen to that. After all of what Holloway's done recently, and he's a plus 180, that's, I'm trying so hard not to bet this fight so I can just watch it as a fan for once, but.
And like, even if you think Volkanovski won the second fight, right? Like, you have to admit that it was super close.
Yeah, so it should be a complete pick 'em again, So I can see why the line is the way it is. I mean, he's got 2 W's next to his name, and he's had finishes since then, but I don't know. This needs to be a coin flip fight. Max Holloway's the side to bet for sure. And I do like the overs in this fight too. I'm in total agreement. I don't see this finishing inside the distance.
Agreed. So, all right, we're up to our main event. Honestly, I like the title fight we just went over before better, but what can you do?
Yeah, why aren't these flipped? This should be the co-main event, honestly.
Right. And honestly, my feelings with Max Holloway and Volk are similar to how I felt when Adesanya fought Whitaker, because I'm a huge Whitaker guy. Like, do or die, I love my guy Whitaker. Yeah, so I didn't bet. Of course. I didn't really bet that fight. I only bet the overs there as well for the same reason. So, but anyways, we got Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. Adesanya 22-1-0, 32 years old, 6'4", 80-inch reach, and he's training at a City Kickboxing. On the other side, you got Jared Cannonier, 15-5-0, 38 years old, 5'11", which is actually smaller than I thought. And he's got a 78-inch reach, training out of MMA Lab, like I mentioned before, great camp. I don't know how good it is for the bigger guys because I don't know any other bigger guys training there, but I'd assume it's the same stuff. Great camp. But, yeah, man, I feel like everybody's got the same read on this realistically. And how could you not, right? You got Israel Adesanya, one of the best technical strikers we've ever seen in the UFC, against Jared Cannonier, who's got insane power. He's been putting together great performances, but he's not the best striker in the UFC. Realistically, what I think is going to happen here is he's going to get picked apart at range, right? Probably for 5 rounds, maybe a late finish for Adesanya. I already sprinkled 4 and 5. Like, I don't like betting on guys who are going to be reliant on a KO. I'm not a person like that. I don't bet on power. So I'm not going to sit here and bet Cannonier, even though it's big, juicy dog odds. I'm not seeing it. I parlayed out Adesanya when he was a little bit cheaper, like minus 360. He's now minus 450, so that's a bit more than I'm comfortable with. But again, I don't really see how he loses unless he gets KO'd. So, yeah, I mean, there's really not – I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I just think Israel Adesanya is the much, much better striker, and Cannonier's not some grappler, So, Israel Adesanya for me, probably by decision, maybe a late finish. What are you thinking, Pat?
Yeah, I'm on the same side. I don't have anything on this fight. The way that I would look to bet this would be, before the lines even dropped, it'd be Izzy by decision, like you mentioned. But that's only like plus 120 or so, maybe plus 130 if you can find that out there. And in a fight where the problem with Cannonier here is it's like, what does he bring to the table that would be a threat to Adesanya? Obviously, the knockout power, but a lot of people have that. You got to have some attributes. You got to be able to take him out of his element. Otherwise, you're just in a kickboxing match in an MMA cage, So you need to have a guy like Marvin Vettori who can at least try to put him on his back. You got to have a guy like, if Brunson got the chance again, that can put him on his back. You got to have a guy that can nullify that movement and the kickboxing experience. Otherwise, you're not going to beat him, really, unless you've got the same physical attributes, which Cannonier comes close. I mean, at least he's got a nice long reach, former heavyweight, former light heavyweight. So that could really play a role in this. But, yeah, you're going to be just eating Adesanya leg kicks at range. He's going to be trying to slow down your movement, hitting your legs, pumping the jab in your face, switching stances on you, making you think about things before you dart in recklessly. It's going to be that type of fight. So Cannonier definitely has a chance to win this fight, but I don't think it's far. I don't think the odds of him winning are far off of the money line, and that's pretty crazy considering it's minus 400 and change for Adesanya. So it's hard for me to parlay this, hard for me to do anything with this, in all honesty, because it'll be a guy like Jared Cannonier that'll end up beating Adesanya eventually, a guy who he kind of looks past potentially, that, right when Adesanya thinks he can, lean out of range and that,
Chris
Weidman after him. Yeah, Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva is what I was thinking of there. So it'll be that type of scenario that would happen, but I don't see the likelihood of that happening. I'd probably need more than plus 300 on the money line. I need I don't know, plus 600 or something like that, so.
That's his KO prop. Plus 600.
Yeah, well, even that would be probably what I would line it at. That's still not enough extra value. I don't know. I'm just not in the mood to try to chase the guy who's probably just going to eat, Adesanya leg kicks for 25 minutes, and then I don't even want to bet the decision prop for that low of a price, because if this is a kickboxing match, which it probably will be for 25 minutes, Adesanya has finishing power too. He's got the ability to finish him inside the distance. So I just imagine myself trying to make the smart bet at plus 125 by decision, and then he finishes him in Paulo Costa style in round 2. So I could see Izzy winning this fight inside the distance or by decision, but his money line is too much for me to touch. But I do think he wins, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I was looking at their over, and that's why I didn't play it, because I feel like Adesanya can do what he did to Costa here. Costa just couldn't close the distance, and if Cannonier can't do that, I think it's going to look similar. So I totally
played him by decision against Whitaker, which in hindsight actually was kind of dicey, right? In their last fight, I played him by decision over Vettori, because that certain amounts of the fight are not going to be on the feet. They're going to be stalled against the cage. They're going to be stalled on the mat. So you got less time that Adesanya is going to be working to land something crazy. In this fight, this is probably going to be 25 minutes of stand-up. So he does have a chance to land something crazy, and this might not see the scorecards.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's it. That's 13 fights we just broke down. I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in. We got 9 live viewers right now. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate it big time. Thank you, Pat, for coming on, especially on short notice. Pat was supposed to come on in a few weeks, but Eric dropped out because of COVID. We're all getting sick around here. So big shout out to Pat. Thank you for coming on, man.
It's a pleasure, man.
Tell the folks where to find you, man.
All right, my name's Patrick. I run a YouTube called Addicted to Combat, so go over there, give us a subscribe. I drop full card breakdowns. I'm doing those early in the week now. On Mondays, usually trying to beat that line movement now. So I do a best bets and props, where I do a much shorter form video, about 10 minutes on Wednesday or Thursday, going over some of my betting action and the best value money lines and props out there. Then I do a recap on Sunday. So go over to Addicted to Combat, at Combat Addict 1 on the Twitter, and let's talk some fights.
Let's go. And for me, this is my main show every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. On Wednesdays, I do my fantasy show where I cover prize picks, monkey knife fight, and underdog fantasy with a sprinkle of DraftKings. It's just, I'm still learning DraftKings, and I feel like the guys at Pub Sports, Wheezy, Brady, Gordo, and Monk kill it with the DraftKings. I suggest checking their show out for that. So I usually lay off of that in particular, but that's my fantasy show. Tomorrow I got a guest coming over. I'll post about it on Twitter after this show. And then on every Thursday at 6 p.m., me and Lou, MMA Engine, Bet Elevator, awesome show, completely different from everything else during the week. We look for the crazy stuff. If you followed me before, I love my crazy props. So that's my favorite show. And then on Saturdays, you can usually find me on the Round Table with John Kelly. And so that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Pat. And
of course.
I hope everybody enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy the fights, guys.